Hi friends, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be going over all of the domain card changes from Daggerheart's beta to the live version of the game. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll do my best to get to those when I can. I'll also include timestamps for all the different domains. I imagine that this video is probably going to take a while because the document itself is a little long and it took me a while to get these all written down. So if you do find the video helpful, I'd appreciate a like, a share, a subscribe. Also, let me know what your favorite changes have been. I do like interacting, kind of talking in the comments. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Top of the domains with the Arcana Domain. So thankfully with Arcana, tier 1, 2, 3, 4 have no changes, so everything's pretty similar up until we get to Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning has kind of been reworded. Essentially now you're marking 2 stress for that spellcast roll, unleashing lightning on all targets within close range. Any targets that you succeed against, make a reaction roll with the difficulty that is set to that spellcast roll you made earlier. Targets who fail take 2d8 plus 4 magic damage. Additionally, any adversaries who are not already targeted by Chain Lightning within close range of the previous targets who took the damage also make the reaction roll. So it's going to hit one, bounce to the others, as you would expect with Chain Lightning. You can't target the same adversary twice, and one adversary cannot be targeted by multiple instances of Chain Lightning. But again, any targets who fail are going to take that 2d8 plus 4 magic damage. And this is going to continue until there's no more adversaries in range. Tier 6 we saw no changes. In Tier 7, Arcana Touched got changed. And just as a alert or spoiler, I'm going to skip through a lot of the different like domain touched abilities because they all now require 4 or more of their domain card. It used to be a majority, now it's specifically 4, and that's from top to bottom. Cloaking Blast also got a change. Now when you make a successful spellcast roll to cast a different spell, you can spend a hope to become cloaked. And they also removed the part about like the GM having to use all their action tokens to reveal you. It was a little weird, so that's gone now. Tier 8, no changes. Tier 9, Earthquake, now doesn't affect flying targets, but otherwise works the same. Tier 10, Adjust Reality, has been reworded and kind of, I guess you could say it's probably a nerf. After you or a willing ally make a roll, you can spend 5 hope to change the numerical result of that roll to a result of your choice instead. The result must be plausible within the range of the dice. This used to change the results of the roll itself. Now you're only changing the numerical results, so my interpretation of this is that you can roll the numerical value of a crit, but you're not actually getting a crit. Outside of that, everything else in Arcana is the same, and we're good to go on to Blade. Blade Tier 1, Retaliation got removed. You've probably already seen this one. I know there's been a lot of talk about it. Now there's a new skill called Get Back Up. It's got a recall cost of 1. When you take severe damage, you can mark a stress to reduce the severity by 1 threshold. And then not good enough, when you roll your damage dice, you can re-roll any 1s or 2s. They actually removed the one roll rule here, so presumably how it's read, you can just keep rolling and you don't have 1s and 2s anymore, so that can be very strong. Tier 2 and 3 saw no changes. Tier 4, Fortified Armor got updated. While you're wearing armor, you gain a +2 bonus to your damage threshold. This was fully changed and fully reworked, so brand new skill effectively. Tier 5, Champion's Edge, got a little bit more clarification with the wording. You can't choose the same option more than once now. Tier 6, Rage Up, its recall cost was increased to 1. It previously was 0. And then Battle Hardened got updated. Once per long rest, when you would make a death move, you can spend a hope to clear a hit point instead. So that's the new ability. That kind of got changed. And then Tier 7, Blade Touched, now requires 4 or more Blade cards in the Blade Domain. Tier 8 and 9 have no changes. And then on to Tier 10, Battle Monster now costs 4 stress, reduced from 6, and Onslaught costs 3, previously was 0. Additionally, when a creature within your weapon's melee range deals damage to an ally or with an attack that doesn't include you, you can mark a stress to force them to make a reaction roll, difficulty 15. On failure, the target must mark a hit point. So pretty nice little retaliation effect there. Moving on to the Bone Domain. Tier 1 deft maneuvers got a little bit of a buff and nerf. Once per rest, you're going to be marking a stress to sprint anywhere within far range without making an agility roll to get there. If you end this movement within melee range of an adversary, you immediately make an attack against them and gain +1 bonus to that attack roll. This got nerfed in the fact that it's only once per rest now, but then it got buffed that it automatically gives you an attack that you can kind of roll into. So, little bad, little good. Tier 2 saw no changes. Tier 3, Brace got updated. When you mark an armor slot to reduce incoming damage, you can mark a stress to mark an additional armor slot. And then Tactician got changed a little bit. When you help an ally, they can spend the hope to add one of your experiences to the roll alongside your advantage die. So the change here is now the ally has to spend the hope in order to do this. So a little bit of a nerf there. Tier 4, no changes. Tier 5, Know Thy Enemy, got updated. Now you can only ask for one set of information from the GM. Previously, I believed it was 2 of these things, so now it's only 1. And here are the kind of updated things that you can ask for. Their unmarked hit points or stress, their difficulty and damage thresholds, their tactics and standard attack damage dice, and their features and experiences. This was like almost kind of like a fourth wall, like looking into the mechanical view of everything. So it's been reduced to one set of information, one of those bullet points. Tier 6, no changes. Tier 7, again, four cards to get your bonuses. And then the once per rest, you can spend 3 hope to cause an attack that would succeed against you to fail instead. This is a new bonus added to the Bone Touched. Tier 8, Wrangle. The recall cost is changed, got reduced to 1. It was 3 previously. You can make an agility roll against all targets within close range, spend a hope to move targets you succeed and any willing allies within close range to another point within close range. So a total battlefield shifting rearrangement sounds super fun if you're playing digital. Tier 9, On the Brink. When you have 2 or fewer hit points unmarked, you don't take minor damage. So when you're really low, a little bit tankier, kind of keep you up there. And then Tier 10, Swift Step, was renamed to it was Serenity, now it is Swift Step, and the recall cost was increased to 2 from 1. Otherwise, the skill is working the same as before. Codex Domain. There are a lot of changes in the Codex Domain, so bear with me as we kind of work through all of them. I love the books, and I loved them up until I did this comparison review. But moving forward, Book of Iliad. Arcane Barrage now deals magic damage. It dealt magic damage before, but it was worded as direct magic damage, so now it is just regular magic damage, no longer direct. Telepathy now costs a hope to activate. This is definitely a big nerf to telepathy. I know a lot of parties use this pretty liberally. Now you're going to have to use a hope in order to activate it. Book of Ava also got changed. Tav's armor. Spend a hope to give a target you can touch a +1 bonus to their armor score until their next rest, or you cast Tav's armor again. And then Ice Spike got changed as well. It now has a spellcast roll of 12 if it's used on no target. You can still use it against a target. They just added this clause, like it gave it difficulty if you wanted to use it without a target. But if you're casting it against somebody like an attack, you're going to be rolling against their difficulty. The Book of Typhar, Mysterious Mist got changed. You now make a spellcast roll, difficulty 13, to cast a temporary thick fog that gathers in a stationary area within very close range. The fog heavily obscures this area and everything within it. This is a very kind of strange rewording because obscure itself is hardly ever mentioned in the entire rulebook. I think it's only like 3 times, one of them being this instance. But essentially, everyone inside is still going to be hidden. So a little bit of a strange rewording there without like clear rules on how it works, but that's going to be kind of my interpretation of it. Moving on to tier 2, the Book of Vagris Rune Lock got double nerfed. And if you had some shenanigans with this in the past, I'm sure you understand why it's getting nerfed. But now it requires a spellcast roll difficulty of 15 on an object you're touching that you can close, such as a lock, chest, box, door. Once per rest. On a success, you can lock the object, so it can only be opened by creatures of your choice, and then somebody with access to magic in about an hour to study it can break the spell. But yeah, 2 nerfs. Now it requires a spellcast roll, and it's only once per rest. Arcane Door. This one, oh boy, I don't know why they made this change, guys. I actually don't know why they made this change, but this is going to be so much like shenanigans that are going to come from this ability. Arcane Door. When you have no adversaries within melee range, you can make a spellcast roll difficulty of 13. On a success, you spend a hope to create a portal from where you are to a point within far range you can see. It closes once a creature passes through it. That's the skill. So, the wording here, again, like I said, is crazy. It used to only apply to the caster as like a teleport away. So I guess, yeah, enjoy portal antics until this probably gets updated. Reveal also got a nerf. Now, when you make a spellcast roll, if there are any magically hidden objects within close range, those are revealed. And it only reveals magically hidden objects. Before previously, it revealed anything hidden. So it's much more narrow in its scope of what it finds. Going to the Book of Sittle, Paralela has been kind of buffed and nerfed. Now the wording is spend 2 hope to cast a spell on yourself or an ally within close range, and then the next time the target makes an attack, they can hit an additional target within range. They can hit an additional target within the range that their attack roll would succeed against, and then you can only hold the spell on 1 creature at a time. Essentially, it's giving you an extra attack on anything nearby. Tier 3, the Book of Narai, Fireball, double buffs. We love that. Everybody loves Fireball, right? Reaction roll has been increased to 13, and the damage that has been increased from a D8 plus 5 to a D20 plus 5 using your proficiency. Passing a reaction still causes you to take half damage. So yeah. 12 bonus points, upgraded from a D8 to a D20. So Fireball gamers, we are so back in it. The Book of Korvax also got a couple changes. Recant got nerfed. Now the target must be in melee range in order for it to activate. And then Rune Circle got a buff. This one also is a pretty decent buff. Mark a Stress, the new wording is mark a Stress to create a temporary magical circle on the ground where you stand. All adversaries within that melee range or whoever enter the melee range take 2d12 plus 4 magic damage and are knocked back to very close range. Key wording here is who enter melee range. The verbiage was changed to basically give this effect a knockback to enemies as they enter into melee range instead of at the end of their action, which is what it was previously. So it should be kind of working how you would imagine it, as like a barrier that kind of knocks back enemies that can't really get in if they can't reach past melee. Tier 4, the Book of Grin, time lock got adjusted. The object will now stay locked until your next rest. This is pretty much a buff, I think. Previously, it was until the end of the scene, so it's going to stay there until your next rest. Wall of Flame, however, did get a pretty big nerf. Now you must need a spellcast roll of 15. On success, you create a wall of magical flames between 2 points within very far range. All creatures in its path must choose a side to be on. Anything that subsequently passes through the wall will take will take 4d10 plus 3 magic damage. Previously, this was just you marked a stress and it could hit on top of creatures, so it was wildly strong. Makes sense that it got nerfed kind of as hard as it did. Still will be good, but yeah, it got adjusted for sure. The Book of Exoda, Repudiate. You can now interrupt a magical effect taking place. Make a reaction roll using your spellcast trait. Once per rest. On a success, The effect stops, any consequences. Effect stops, and any consequences are avoided. Now, this was changed, and I know there's been a lot of talk about this one as well. It used to be counterspell. Do note that the wording here does not clarify that it can stop a spell, just a magical effect. So there are certain spells that have lingering magical effects. I'm assuming that it's going to apply to the lingering magical effect, but not necessarily the spell cast or the initial damage. But could be up to GM, or they might have to clarify a little bit further in the future. Moving to tier 5, teleport. Modifiers basically were just adjusted, being a little less swingy. If you know the place very well, now it's a +3 bonus. If you visited the place frequently, it's a +1. If you visit it infrequently, maybe you've been there a couple times, you gain no modifier. And if you've only ever been there once, it's a -2 penalty. Tier 6, banish. This got changed as well. You can make a spellcast roll against a target within close range. On a success, roll a number of d20s equal to your spellcast trait. The target then must make a reaction roll with the difficulty equal to whatever the highest that you rolled on those d20s. On success, the target must mark a stress. They don't get banished. However, if they fail, once per rest, on failure, they are banished from this realm. When the PC rolls with fear, the difficulty gains a -1, and then the target makes another reaction roll. On a success, they return from banishment. So if you're confused on how it works now, you make your spellcast roll, you roll a bunch of d20s equal to whatever your spellcast trait is, take the highest one, and then the monster that you're trying to banish, or whoever you're trying to banish, makes a reaction roll. If they beat it, they take a stress. If they fail, you basically put them in your pocket and kind of hang on to them. Every time you roll a fear, whatever the roll was that you succeeded, whatever your highest roll was, it's going to lower by 1. DM makes another roll, and that kind of is going to continue until they break free. And you can only do this once per rest now. Sign of Retribution also got a wording change. The damage must... This was a little interesting that they changed it this way, but the damage must be added and dealt when you successfully attack the marked adversary. Otherwise, it's the same. Previously, it said you may use the damage. Now it kind of forces your hand, and you have to add the damage now when you go ahead and land the attack. Tier 7 Codex touched. You need 4 cards. Yep, we know. The Book of Hamet also changed. Plane Gate now required. It now requires that the plane that you're trying to open a gate to, you must have been there before. Previously, it was just aware of it, which I'm sure created some chaos and some interesting side quests. But now you have to have been to the plane before. Tier 8 Safe Haven just got a rename from Haven, so not really even that big of a rename. Still works the same. Tier 9 Disintegration Wave. Rest in peace, Disintegration Wave. Not really. It's still going to be super strong, but now you must mark a stress for each adversary you wish to basically delete. Used to be all of them, which was incredibly powerful. And obviously, yeah, the nerf was well deserved, but now it's just mark a stress for each one you want to take out. The Book of Ronin, Eternal Inveneration. This previously was Stable Portal. Once per long rest, you can make a spellcast roll against a target within close range. On a success, they become permanently vulnerable, and it cannot be cleared. The condition is permanent, can't be cleared by fear or anything else like that. And then Tier 10, Transcendent Union. The wording was just clarified here a little bit. Essentially, the connected creatures just choose who marks stress, who marks hit points. It said that they shared them beforehand, which kind of made a little bit of a confusion, but now you just decide between the two of you who's taking the stress, who's taking the hit points, and you can use them. You can use the other person's if they agree. Going on to the Grace Domain, Tier 1 Enrapture got an update as well. On success, they become temporarily enraptured. This line was added, but otherwise it's the same. It's basically a new effect of enraptured, but it essentially works the same. And then inspirational words, also the verbiage about the action tracker was removed. Otherwise, no changes here. It's still working the same. Tier 2, Tell No Lies. It gained like a narrative clarity, if you will. The target is typically unaware of the spell. The target is typically unaware the spell has been cast on them until it causes them to utter the truth. And obviously, if they decide that they're not going to answer a question, they mark a stress and then the spell drops. So now we kind of know what happens if they speak the truth and kind of don't know what's going on. That can snap them out of it, and then they'll understand that something was happening. Troublemaker also got a nerf here. When you taunt or provoke a target within far range, make a presence roll against them once per rest on success. You can roll a number of d4s equal to your proficiency. Then the target must mark a stress equal to the highest result rolled. Going to tier 3, invisibility. New wording here: choose yourself or an ally within melee range to become invisible. An invisible creature can't be seen except through magical means, and attack rolls against them are made with disadvantage. Tier 4, no changes. Tier 5, Words of Discord. It no longer takes a GM's turn, so still very useful, but it doesn't take the GM's turn anymore. And then Thought Deliver, it added a new thing. On roll with the fear, the target might, at the GM's discretion, become aware that you're reading their thoughts. So added a little bit of an extra downside, kind of like hinting to maybe the players or the GMs what happens when you're kind of delving into somebody's mind. Tier 6, never upstaged. This no longer clears stress if tokens were left on the cards. So do your damage, get in, deal your damage before the fight ends. Otherwise, all the tokens on this one are going to go away. Tier 7, Grace touched 4 cards as always, but now there's 2 options. They removed one of the other ones. Now you can mark an armor slot instead of marking a stress. And then when you would force a target to mark any number of hit points, you can choose to instead force them to mark that same number of stress. Tier 8, Massive Enrapture. Again, the Enrapture, it inflicts the Enrapture condition, similar to how it was in Tier 1. And then you also can mark a stress to force all Enraptured targets to mark a stress. This does end the spell, however. Tier 9, no changes. We love that. Tier 10, Notorious. This one, again, reasonable nerf. We kind of all saw it coming. Recall cost was changed to 0. It was previously 1. However, everything you buy is now reduced by the price. It's, oh my goodness. Everything else you buy now is reduced by 1 gold bag in like price total. So previously it was a full chest. Everything that you bought was reduced by 1 chest of gold, with a minimum being 1 handful. That's been changed. It's now only 1 bag of gold. Going over to Midnight Domain. Tier 1, no changes. Tier 2, Midnight Spirit. It added an interesting line as a conditional, as like a part of the attack. On the success of the spirit's attack move, if you're instructing it to attack, it must move within melee range of the target that it's attacking. Tier 3, Chokehold. This one's definitely a buff in my opinion. When you position yourself behind a creature who's about your size, you can mark a stress to pull them into a chokehold, making them temporarily invulnerable. They removed the verbiage, which was kind of awkward, the equally compromising position. It was fun, but it was also very kind of like confusing. And then it also doesn't require any hidden now. So, you know, it's chokehold or nah. Going on to Veil of Night. It was just renamed. Previously was Veil of Shadows. Tier 4, Glyph of Nightfall. This was a new name. Previously was Midnight Mark. It temporarily reducing the target's difficulty by the value equal to your knowledge. It's a minimum of 1. I think this is a slight nerf. It used to be 1 plus your knowledge. Now it's just your knowledge. Tier 5, Hush. Verbiage was updated for clarity. It's silence. We all know it's silence. Everybody knew it was silence. Yeah, so while silenced, they can't make noise or cast spells. So I'm glad that they updated it. Yeah, everybody knew it was silence. Tier 6, Dark Whispers. The target now needs to be somebody with whom you've made physical contact. So it used to be like you just knew somebody's name. Now you have to have made physical contact with them. The added clarity also to the question you're asking the GM. as opposed to like asking the person in their mind, you're asking the GM. Tier 7, Midnight Touch, it's 4 cards as well. Once per rest, when you have 0 hope and the GM would gain a fear, you gain a hope instead. This one is a huge nerf. I know, unfortunately, guys, sorry, but yeah, it's now once per rest, and it's when you have 0 hope. You would be able to activate it to steal a fear away from the GM. And then when you make a successful attack, you can mark a stress to add the result of your fear die to the damage roll. So second one's still good bit of extra damage there. Tier 8, no changes. Tier 9, no changes. Tier 10, Eclipse has been updated. All attack rolls have disadvantage when targeting you or an ally within the shadow. Previously, it gave everybody +2 evasion. I think across the board, this one's probably better, unless you're already giving disadvantage out, then it's a little bit of a nerf. Hopping down to the Sage Domain, Tier 1. Gifted Tracker got a little bit of an update here. When you're tracking a specific creature or group of creatures based on their signs of their passage, you can spend any number of hope and ask the GM that many questions from the following list. It used to be like an open-ended prompt. I think this is a little bit easier for everybody involved. The new questions are: what direction did they go? How long ago did they pass through? What were they doing in this location? And how many of them were here? When you encounter creatures that you've tracked in this way, you're still going to be gaining a +1 bonus to your evasion against them. Nature's Tongue also updated. Additionally, before you make a spell cast while within a natural environment, you can spend a hope to gain a +2 on the roll. So a little bit of a bonus to Nature's Touch there, which is a nice little passive bonus. Vicious Entangle, to nobody's surprise, was nerfed. Additionally, the new verbiage is now additionally on a success, you can spend a hope to temporarily restrain another adversary within very close range of your target. This used to be just 1 hope, and it would just like grab everybody in close range. Now it's just 1 more target. Tier 2, Conjure Swarm, the Takari Armored Beetles. When you next take damage, you reduce the severity by 1 threshold. This used to give you resistance to damage, so now it's only giving you that 1 threshold lower. And then Fireflies, this one got a interesting update as well. Now when you make the spellcast roll, you make it against all adversaries within close range. You used to be able to like pick out which ones. That selection is gone now. It's going to be against all enemies. The Fireflies cannot be told what to do. Tier 3, Corrosive Projectile. This one's a little bit new as well. Make a spellcast roll against a target within far range. On a success, you're still going to be doing a D6 +4 magic damage using your proficiency. Additionally, mark 2 or more stress to make them permanently corroded. While the target is corroded, they gain a -1 penalty to their difficulty for every 2 stress you spent. And this is one of the a few conditions that can actually stack. Looking at Tier 4, no changes. Tier 5, it got a nerf. Thorn Skin, now you can only cast it on yourself as the druid, or somebody from the Sage Domain, you can only cast it on yourself. Otherwise, it works the same. Wild Fortress also got a nerf. I think it got a nerf. The new wording now is make a spellcast roll of 13, and on a success, you spend 2 hope to grow a natural barricade in the shape of a dome that you and 1 ally can take cover in. This much is the same. While inside the dome, a creature can't be targeted by attacks and can't make attacks. This is the part that's new. Attacks made against the dome automatically succeed, and the dome has the following thresholds and it lasts until it marks 3 hit points. Place tokens on the card representing its hit points, yada yada. Thresholds are still the same at 15 and 30. The big change here is they added an extra hope to the cost of the card, and they removed the ability for you to kind of like peek out and attack from the top of the fortress, and you're no longer hidden. You kind of have to sit inside, so it's more of like a purely defensive, at least how it reads is a purely defensive skill. Tier 6 Forager, the luck charm item that you could forage or potentially find on your rest move got nerfed. Now number 5, or if you roll a 5, the luck charm previously was reroll all duality and damage dice. Now it is just a luck charm that lets you reroll any die. So singular, well, I guess it could be plural too. You'll have to talk to your GM about that one. Tier 7, Sage Touched. The only thing right here that got changed is when choosing to double your agility or instinct roll, you have to choose to do this before you make the roll. So just minor update to that little interaction. And then Wild Surge also, it got flipped, if you will. So now when you place a d6 on the card, it starts with the 1 value facing up. And then when the die's value would exceed 6, you take it, or one of you take a rest. The form drops and you need to mark an additional stress. So Wild Change kind of changed in that regard. It's starting at 1 and building up every turn. It kind of increases by 1 until it caps out. Tier 8 Forest Sprites, your allies gain a +3 bonus to attack rolls against adversaries within melee range of the sprite, and then an ally who marks an armor slot while within melee range of the sprite can mark an additional armor slot. So giving you the option to mark 2 armor slots if you're near one of your little forest sprite friends. A rejuvenation barrier, also this got changed. While the barrier is up, you and your allies now who are within the barrier have resistance to physical damage from outside of the barrier. So if an enemy was to move inside of the barrier, you wouldn't have physical resistance from it. So it's kind of like a walking bubble, if you will. And then Tier 9 Plant Domain. I'm sorry, they removed the damage from creating a hostile environment. Not much to say there besides the damage is gone. Tier 10, no changes. So we can hop over to Splendor. So for Tier 1 of the Splendor Domain, no changes there. Tier 2, Final Words, got a little bit of GM clarification. The corpse answers truthfully, but it can't impart any information that it didn't know in its life. And on failure, or once the corpse has finished answering all of your questions, then the body turns to dust. Bold Presence got an increase, got a buff. Now, when you make a presence roll, you can spend a hope to add your strength to the to the roll. There was previously a hostile target restriction that has been removed, so now you can use this when you're making a general presence roll. And then, additionally, once per rest, when you would gain a condition, you can now describe how your bold presence kind of aids you in fending off that situation and kind of keeps you from gaining the condition. So get you a little get out of jail free card once per rest. Tier 3 Voice of Reason. This was just renamed. Previously was Conviction, otherwise works the same. Tier 4 Divination. This one is a pretty big nerf. Once per long rest, you can spend 3 hope to reach out to the forces beyond, which is your GM, and ask him 1 yes or no question about an event, person, place, or situation in the near future. For a moment, the present falls away and you see the answer before you. So this used to be open-ended. It's not anymore. It's going to be a yes or no. Life Ward also got changed, a little rewording here. You spend 3 hope to choose an ally within close range. They are marked with a glowing sigil of protection. When this ally would make a death move, they are cleared a hit point instead. So this would, when you go to that hit point and you go to that last marking, that last point, you know, okay, now you got to make a death move. You take that hit point off. This effect ends when it saves the target from the death move, and you can cast Life Ward, or when you cast Life Ward on another target, or take a rest. So wording is basically just changed up a little bit for clarity, but otherwise it's the same effect. Tier 5 Smite. It can only be used once per rest, so big nerf to Smite. Still very, very powerful, but only once per rest now. Tier 6 Restoration got a buff. Your tokens can now be used to clear 2 hit points or 2 stress. Used to be only 1 stress. Zone of Protection. This one also got kind of a nerf. It was inversed and lowered. So when you create the Zone of Protection, whenever you do, you place a d6 on the card with the 1 value facing up. When allies in the zone take damage, they reduce it by the die's value. Then you increase the die's value by 1. When the die's value would exceed 6, the effect ends. So kind of similar to Wild Surge, they flipped this. It used to start at max value and tick down. Now it's starting at the minor value and ticking up. Still going to be really powerful and really good. So I don't think it needs to be getting really, like, you know, kind of the degrees of hate that I kind of noticed it getting. It's still going to be really interesting and fun. And you kind of have to commit to staying in the Zone of Protection to really get a lot of value out of it. So interesting narratively. Tier 7, Splendor Touched, just 4 cards needed. That's the only change there. Tier 8, Shield Aura. You're going to be marking a stress to cast a protective aura on a target within very close range. When the target marks an armor slot, they reduce the severity of the attack by an additional threshold. If the spell causes a creature who would be damaged to instead mark no hit points, the effect ends. And you can only hold Shield Aura on one creature at a time. So interesting that it falls off when it prevents all damage, but it's still generally keeping just a blanket extra threshold reduction when you mark armor. That's really good. Stunning Sunlight also got a little bit of a nerf. Damage is adjusted for the save, so targets who succeed, they're only going to be taking 3 d20 plus 3 magic damage. Targets who fail are taking 4 d20 plus 5 magic damage and are temporarily stunned. So the only change here was really just 1 d20. Tier 9, no changes. Tier 10, Resurrection was changed. They removed the verbiage about consequences of failing powerful magic on the dead. I'm not really sure what the implication was, because you still can't, on success, you really can't use it for an extra week, even if you do succeed, and if it fails, and you can't use it for a while. So kind of confusing, but either way, you can kind of narratively handle that one as you see fit. And we've made it to Valor Domain, and maybe I can get under 40 minutes. I'm going to go quick. Valor Domain, Tier 1, Forceful Push has been changed on success. You can deal damage and knock a target back to close range. Pushback range has been increased significantly. It was only melee range. Now it's close range. I Am Your Shield, a buff and a nerf. When an ally within very close range would take damage, you can mark a stress to stand in the way and make yourself the target of the attack. When you take damage from the attack, you can mark an additional armor slot. So it's still good. It lost the strength, the automatic strength reduction, but you can use an extra armor slot now. So it's probably like a double nerf for that one actually, but either way. Bare Bones got buffed. When you choose this and you choose not to equip armor, you now have a base armor score of 3 plus your strength, and you use the following base damage thresholds, which at least at Tier 1, this is like really, really powerful. Tier 1, your thresholds are 9 and 19. Tier 2, 11, 24. Tier 3, 13, 31. And Tier 4, 15, 38. Remember, you're adding your level to those. That's just your base damage thresholds. Tier 2, no changes. Tier 3, no changes. Tier 4, Goad Them On got changed. Now you can describe how you taunt a target within close range. Then you make a presence roll against them. On success, the target must mark a stress, and then the next time the GM spotlights that adversary, they must target you with an attack, which they make with disadvantage. So a little bit more clarity on how that works as a taunt. Tier 5, no changes. Tier 6, Rise Up got buffed. Now it has gained the line, when you mark 1 or more hit points from an attack, you can clear stress. Tier 7, Valor Touched is going to be 4 cards. Now you're getting a +1 bonus to your armor score, and when you mark 1 or more hit points without marking an armor slot, you clear an armor slot. So little trade between your HP and your armor there. Tier 8, no changes. Tier 9, Hold the Line. This condition now lasts until you move or fail a roll with fear. The GM also can spend 2 fear on their turn to clear the condition, to clear the grapples. It's the condition it's referring to is when they're restrained. So now it costs 2 GM fear to clear it. And then lastly, Tier 10, Unyielding Armor. When you would mark an armor slot, you roll a number of d6s equal to your proficiency. If you roll a 6, the severity is reduced by 1 threshold without marking the armor slot. And those are all the changes. I'm going to go ahead and grab some water now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found the video helpful, again, your likes and subscribes and shares and all that good stuff are greatly appreciated. And I do love hearing the comments, giving a chance to kind of have communications and talk to everybody down in the comments. So appreciate it a lot. Anyway, see you guys in the next video. I'm going to look for some more changes now. All right, take it easy. See you in the next one.